I think I'm live. Can everyone hear me? I haven't done this from my laptop before, so that's Abby. Can you guys hear me? All right, so I figured I would come to you guys today and just do a live Q&A. We're getting ready for this big snowstorm that is not materializing as of yet. And I have been filming like crazy for a project that I'm going to be releasing on Tuesday that I'm super excited about. I also wanted to share with you guys a few things that I've gotten in the mail because it's always super exciting when you guys send me mail. It's like Christmas each time I go to my P.O. box. I got in the mail this week a pocket knife, which I thought was super cool, from Eric Jeffries, in order to do better unboxing, because his note said that Peck Tech cannot run that show. So I was pretty excited about that. Generally, I'm like looking around trying to find anything that will cut in the fish room. So very nice. My husband's here, but he refuses to be on camera.
I'm coming, don't worry.
I also got from JH Aquatics a giant bag of botanicals that he collected for me where he lives. I think he sells these as well. There's a bunch of leaf litter and neat pods and things like that. That's my daughter wrecking house. Neat stuff like this. Abigail, for real. I think I'm going to be adding a lot of this cool stuff to the 75-gallon community nano once I get it prepped. And then I got a pretty neat painting of Captain Cranky Pants that Catherine, who lives relatively local, did for me, that I absolutely love. And this is going to be hanging in our hallway, actually. But I think she really captured the essence of Captain Cranky Pants. They're saying to shut the fridge.
Sorry.
Anyway, I would like to answer some of your questions. My daughter will be leaving the kitchen immediately if she can't straighten out her attitude. I apologize for that. Isn't that painting amazing? I have another one that was done out of watercolor a few years ago that I'll show you guys at some point. One of these days I'm going to do like an art tour because I have a really cool collection of various fish art and stuff like that. I just have to get it all together in one place. Let's see. What do I think about Indian native small size species? I love them. I've worked with a lot over the years. I haven't gotten anything in a really long time, but that's something I would definitely like to do more of. It's not ready for your 3-year-old to become a teen girl. Just wait for it. I have 2 of them. What is a good tank mate for a mono shrimp in a 10-gallon? And is it possible to have a successful blackwater tank with tap water on the harder side? So the thing with blackwater aquariums is the blackwater is just describing the color of the aquarium. Now, generally speaking, in the wild, blackwater environment would be extremely, extremely, extremely soft and acidic. So the pH would be very low, but that doesn't mean that we can't recreate a tannin-filled environment with any source water. Over time, some of the botanicals can impact the hardness of the water, though if your water is actually really hard, it's going to be negligible. So you can certainly have tea-stained water in a harder water aquarium. And as far as what fish for a 10-gallon, I mean, I wrote a whole book about that. There's so many that can work that, you know, I would just encourage you to look through some of the species spotlights and see sort of what tickles your fancy and pick a critter and then build your aquarium around that. Oh, you got the honeycombs yesterday, Michael? That's awesome. Wow, that chat's going faster than I can keep up with. My book is called 101 Best Freshwater Nano Species. It came out in 2014 and has done really well. I authored it with Mark DeNaro, who's a friend of mine and who helped me get started when I was importing. Did I end up getting more Coriodoris delivered? No, I didn't, simply because I didn't think the risk to the fish with that particular shipper was worth it. However, I will be seeing him in February, so I may pick them up in person then. I still want the fish. I don't want to risk any more fish. The weather's been really weird around here. Right now, it's pretty profoundly cold, so it's not very safe to have fish shipped. And, there's no rush. I'm just going to wait. Recommendations for fish for a summer tub in Alaska. I really think it would depend on what the temperature's like there. I don't know much about the climate in Alaska. Will panda cories eat baby helenas? Baby assassin snails? Probably not. Have I ever kept Goodeids? Yes. One of my favorite fish that I've worked with is the butterfly Goodeid, or Amica splendens. They're fantastic, and they're my absolute favorite. Some of the Xenotakas and stuff like that can be a bit snarky, so aren't really well suited to a community, but I had good luck keeping decent-sized groups of the Amicas, and they're really beautiful. Let's see. Market for an upgrade for Bashir. Senegalis. Yeah, 55 to a 75 should be just fine for Senegalis. I mean, they are the tiniest of the upper jaw species. So I would always go with a 75 over a 55 just because it's more space, more volume, and it'll be easier to maintain, but either should be appropriate. Thank you for the super chat, Jesse. Have I noticed any tanks you've kept that had BBA that also have had high levels of organics? I do see BBA more in aquariums that have a heavier fish load with a lesser plant load. For instance, I mean, the Big Boys tank is a good example of that. That BBA in that aquarium was really impressive, and those fish poop like Lincoln logs. So definitely they had more organics. But as far as, I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by organics. I don't have, the only tank that has BBA right now is my shell dweller tank, and I really don't know why it has it. Although the fish density in that aquarium has gotten significantly higher with their reproduction. White mold on the bottom of your 55. I would probably siphon that out. Usually that would be, I mean, uneaten food or decaying plant matter, or sometimes if you have wood in your tank, it'll grow fungus initially in the first several weeks that will resolve, but I always manually remove it. How long have I had Captain? Almost 12 years. Would any plecos make sense in the Hillstream tank? There are Hillstream plecos in South America, or river plecos. However, that aquarium I would not add plecos to. It might be fun in the future to do a Hillstream aquarium for catfish, because there's lots of really cool ones. Also, really big, cool catfish, but it's not something that I've really worked with at this point. Do I think I'll resume fish sales this year when the weather gets warmer? I hope so. I need to make an appointment with my orthopedist and try and get my pain under control, because it's just not under control, and it makes it difficult to do all the things that I have to do if I'm increasing my pain. Can you summer tub panda cories in Minnesota? You'd have to look at your weather. I don't know all the planting zones in the country or what those temperature trends are, but generally speaking, if the daytimes are getting nice and warm and the overnights are staying, over the mid 50s, yeah, probably. Is the greenhouse frozen? I honestly haven't been out to the greenhouse. So people are asking about my knee. My knee replacement was successful. It's not messed up in any way. The problem is I'm having some sort of crazy nerve issues that cause almost constant pain, which should have been resolved by the knee replacement, but they think I might have this other syndrome that's caused from basically my bones grinding on each other for 20 years. Is you painting your nails a bad idea when you have aquarium? Should be fine. I mean, I wouldn't you know, put wet nail polish in the aquarium, but once it's cured, it shouldn't be a problem. And my husband suggests that you not paint your fish's nails either. Can you use neon tetras for dither fish with Apistogramma cockatoides? Sure. I mean, they wouldn't be my choice, not because they're not great fish, but my preference for Apistos is really a fish that stays more up in that top third. My favorite are things like Nanostomus marginatus or the dwarf pencil fish, or like my SBs, or some of the smaller pencil fish, or even things like hatchets can work pretty well. The problem with some of the tetras is that at night in particular, they go down to the bottom third of the aquarium. And if the Apistos are spawning, sometimes they can pick at them. What size tank for a shrimp only tank? So interestingly enough, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be doing quite a few shrimp videos because I've been putting in a lot of work in my shrimp aquariums. And while shrimp have a very low bioload and don't need a lot of space, I think that small aquariums, those under 10 gallons, are extremely difficult to maintain, just because if you overfeed the shrimp tank a bit, your water parameters can quickly get out of control simply because of the small amount of dilution in those aquariums. So it's my opinion that you should always use the largest aquarium you have space for. I mean, I have 75-gallon shrimp tanks. I have 30-gallon shrimp tanks. I have 20 longs. I have 10s. I have 5s. I have all sizes. And probably my favorite is at least a 20 long if you can accommodate that. That also allows you to have a lot more space for a population explosion. I've also found that in smaller aquariums, the shrimp don't get to their sort of peak size without a lot of extra maintenance, and in the bigger volume tanks, they get larger and reproduce quicker. Would I like my mini orchid mounted or bare root? Either would be great. I mean, mounted would be awesome, but beggars can't be choosers, and I would absolutely love some Spanish moss. How are the plants I did the project vid on? The air plants? Hang on one second. I'll grab one for you. This one's my favorite one. This one's blooming right now. It's got a little orange flower on there, and they're doing great. The cats ate one of them, which cats, I mean, what can you do? And the rest I have in my windowsill up here, and I can grab those in a minute as well. Thank you for the super chat. Whoops, where'd you go? I'm not very good at this. Timothy, if there are too many cories in a tank, do they lay less eggs? If the gender ratios are off, sometimes they can lay less eggs. Generally with cories, you want 2 males to 1 female. So if they're spawning and lots of fish are coming up and the gender ratios get wonky, sometimes that can certainly impede it, or if they're irritating each other. Overing One said that you've been watching for a few years. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you want to start a summer tub on my deck. Summer tubs, again, are a thing that I think the more volume you can do, the easier they are, for the same reason as aquariums. So for me, I like using the stock tubs, and you can usually find them on Craigslist as for relatively cheap, and my favorite size of those is probably the 70 gallons. Now, you could also go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any of those box hardware stores, and they have the plastic fake whiskey barrels, which I think are about 30 gallons, usually for around $20, and those are a pretty good choice as well. You would just want to make sure that you don't put them in direct sun because they'll get hot really fast with the lesser volume. In Columbus, Ohio, we have high nitrates in our tap. Is there anything we can do to keep fish safe with water changes? You can pre-treat your water. I mean, you could always set up some sort of trash can on wheels to pre-treat your water, either with fast-growing plants or some carbon, or you could collect rainwater or use RO water to mix with your tap water. The most important thing is going to be keeping it consistent. What plants are best for summer tubs? I have 3 years of videos talking about all the various things I use. I like to use a lot of marginals. So a lot of like stuff where the feet are wet of the plant, but then the bulk of the plant is out of the water, and then they flower and look nice. They provide shade, and then the roots in the water provide cover for the fry. There's a whole lot that are really appropriate. I would generally say go to your local garden center. Most of them will sell water gardening plants, and see what's available. Most of them from the local store should do well. Have I ever thought about keeping goldfish? Not in my fish room. My fish room is too warm. It's too warm down there to keep cooler water species, other than over where my Hillstream tank is, and that's where my Hillstream tank is, and I would never get rid of that for goldfish. In previous years, like way back when I heated the aquariums, not the room, I did work with some goldfish, and I occasionally have some in my one of my buried tubs in my yard. But you know, I like goldfish. I would love to get some shabunkins again, but I'm not going to get something that I can't house well. My favorite filter medium is polyfilter, which is, I don't really utilize it so much as a filter media, though it is one. It changes color to absorb impurities in the water, and I find it to be very useful as a troubleshooting tool. Have I ever kept red whiptail catfish? Yeah, I have some now. They're in with my Hypansistris contradens. Let's see. What should you put in a 30 tall? It depends on what you like. For most of the stuff I work with, that's a palace. I mean, you could fit any number of different things. I'll say what I said to the other person who asked for stocking advice earlier. I mean, stocking's a really personal thing, and your fish choice is a really personal thing. What appeals to me may not appeal to you, so I would suggest looking around and picking the fish that is most important to you for the aquarium, then doing some research on what would go well with it and building your aquarium in that way. Can we meet your cats? They're cats. I can't make them do anything. Right now, I believe they're laying in front of the wood stove. We have miniature cardboard couches for our cats. So the cats are currently laying on their couches in front of the wood stove. Do I like zebra danios? Yeah, I mean, they're pretty awesome. You know, I tend to gravitate more towards things like Danio tinwini or the gold ring Danio. Slightly smaller, a little more interesting color pattern, but a similar behavior. Finding that my new aquarium plants have a die-off transition period. Sometimes they make it and sometimes they don't. That's a pretty common issue, I think, especially with plants that are mass-produced. A lot of times people will grow them immersed, meaning in a humid environment rather than in a flooded tank, in order to really get their root structure established before they flood the tank and let them transition to underwater. Let's see. Thoughts on betta sororities? I've never kept it. I've never kept one. I had planned to do one about a year, maybe 2 years ago, and I had ordered a bunch of female bettas, and they sent me males by accident, so it didn't work out. And I got such when I reached out to peers who are really into bettas, I got such mixed reviews about how well that can go or how poorly it can go that I just decided to scrap that project. And the aquarium that they were supposed to go into is now my wood cat aquarium. So, you know, how small can you build a stream type tank? Probably a 20 long would be the smallest, with a 33 long being better. With a stream type environment, you want more length than anything else in order to get that sort of circular stream-like rapids, for lack of a better word. So longer tanks are definitely better. 1-2 grow plants from Tropica are amazing. I've carried them for a few years. I think there's currently a bit of an issue getting them into the country, though they're working on resolving that. And they've also put in more facilities in Canada in order to have them be more local for getting them into the United States. I'm not sure on the progress of that project, though I know their line of potted plants has become readily available in our country, which is nice. What magazines did I have articles in? I wrote for Amazonas magazine. I wrote for the Aquatic Gardening magazine, which is with the AGA. And I've done some different various things for a few different magazines, but no regular columns in any of those. Really enjoying the new production touches on your recent content. Thank you. My goal for this year is to do better. Technology does not come easily to me. Up until a few months ago, I was using free editing software, which probably makes a lot of you cringe. But I upgraded to Adobe, and I've been really trying to figure out how to improve my production value. I got a new mic. I need to work on some more lighting. I've been working really hard to make my videos better for you guys. Any opinions on using a lot of plants instead of cycling a tank? I don't think there's any replacement for cycling an aquarium. Probably the easiest way to jumpstart your cycle is to just move established media from a filter from another aquarium. Either if you don't have an aquarium, then maybe a friend has an aquarium, or even if you have a store that you really trust, sometimes they'll give you, a media bag of gravel that you could take home. But I don't think that a fish end cycle is ever a good idea because ammonia burn is real, especially with smaller fish. If their gills get compromised, they rarely recover from that. You need to know if you can put any fish with a turtle. That's a pretty broad question. What kind of turtle is it? Is there a hill stream loach or pleco type fish I can add to my 29-gallon with endlers? I mean, Sowelia would be great. Do I think that medication for aquariums is overused? Yes. I think that fish keepers or pet keepers are prone to panic, and we all want the best for our fish. But unlike with our dogs or cats or even pocket pets, it's much more difficult to get our aquarium fish veterinary care. And also, for some reason, medications are not regulated nearly as much for fish as they are with all other animals. So I don't want to say it's too easy to get medications, but we have to remember that medications are designed to kill organisms, whether it's bacteria or fungus or whatever. And that is inherently stressful on our fish. I like to only use medications if I have a pretty good idea of what I'm treating, especially because not all bacterial will respond to all antibiotics. There's a lot of antibiotic resistance. And even in wild fish that are being collected and tested, they're finding antibiotic resistance. And to me, that's a real problem. You also hear about things like super ick that doesn't respond to any treatment. And, it's really from the overuse of medications. Generally, in my mind anyway, feeding a really good diet, keeping a really clean tank, and only using medications when you have an idea of what you're treating is the best course. Hey, John, thanks for the super chat. Pearl Gourami community tank or not? Sure, you just need a decent size tank. Medication for aquarium fish are banned in Denmark. Yeah, it's banned in most of Europe, other than things that are more holistic or homeopathic in nature. So it just goes to show you, U.S. is always behind in that stuff. With a 45-gallon, how many betta would you put for a sorority tank? From one spawn so used to be together. That is really not my wheelhouse. I know that generally speaking, and take this with a grain of salt and maybe consult some people who work with a lot of bettas, I would say probably 5. But I don't know how well that works out long term because it's not something I've done. How big of a risk is Hydra for shrimp? Hydra is a risk not to the adult shrimp, but it is an absolute risk to the baby shrimp. The thing with a lot of the pests in the aquarium, things like Hydra and Planaria, is, you're not going to see them immediately destroying your colony. They may take out one here or there, but it's really a symptom of a bigger problem in the aquarium, too much food. So, like I said, I have a video coming out Tuesday that will address some of this. Will my Corys and Mysteries be okay to stay in my tank for a partial substrate change? Yeah, I think that'd be fine. I would make sure you really really vacuum that substrate before you get started, just to make sure that you're getting as much of the detritus and junk out of it before you disrupt it completely. Do I plan on keeping wild discus? No. I don't keep many fish in that like medium size. I keep really small fish or really big fish. And it's not because medium sized fish aren't great. It's just not what I'm interested in. Can or will Crebensis breed in a community tank? Absolutely. Now, the fry probably won't survive, or not all of them will survive unless you move them to rear them. Are there any drawbacks of feeding cooked egg yolk to fish or fry? Not really. I mean, I tend to not feed things that they wouldn't encounter. But egg yolk has been used forever for rearing fry and as an additive to commercially produced food. So there's not really an issue with it. It's just not something I do. What brand of substrate do I use? I use a few different things. In the Planet aquariums that have root feeding stem plants or things like crypts or swords, I tend to use Tropica soil. I really like it. It's easy to plant in. I think it's really attractive and the plants do awesome. I also use a lot of natural smooth gravels and some coarse sands. What do you think about people wanting plecos in new or small aquariums? I think that's a bad idea. I think in general, anything that is a grazer, specifically, you know, an algae eating fish, really shouldn't be put into a new aquarium. You should let it mature for at least 6 months before getting it, because otherwise, you know, unless they really take to supplemental foods, they're just not going to do well for you long term. And I think it's part of the reason why otocinclus have such a reputation for being so fragile, is that they're so often put into new aquariums and they are just difficult to supplement, at least at first. And it really can be a death sentence for them. Thank you, Christian. Would I ever do disease spotlights? Probably not. Just because I don't see much disease, so it wouldn't be a very interesting video without any footage, but also because I'm very aware of my influence and I would not want to make recommendations on medications and have people use it for fish that I haven't seen or that haven't been properly diagnosed, or even the right steps for making the guesswork. I don't want people to misuse the advice, so I probably won't. Can CPDs handle current? Some current. They don't really like it that much. Any drawbacks or benefits to a bow front aquarium? The only drawback, I think, in a bow front aquarium is that they're really difficult to photograph. My very first aquarium that my husband bought for me was a 16-gallon bow front. I still have it. I love it. We went from that to a 36-gallon corner bow front. I absolutely adored both of those aquariums. I thought they had a really modern feel. They looked really great in our living room, but they were a bitch to photograph. So that's really the only drawback that I saw. Now, some of them tend to get taller, so the footprint isn't ideal for the volume, but I think they're cool. Will Corys and plecos bother each other in a 55-gallon, specifically bristlenose? Probably not. Just make sure you have caves for the bristlenose so that they have a place to spawn. If I were to add a new monster fish to my collection, what would I choose? My husband says, Paco, do you want to sit with me? No? I'm trying, guys. My family's letting us down today.
What?
I don't know what monster fish I would choose. You know, I don't know. I try not to let myself daydream about that too much because I don't have an aquarium for more monster fish. I mean, I would absolutely love to have stingrays someday, but my fish room won't accommodate it unless I got rid of all my little tanks. If a fish is not suffering from a disease, can it still be a carrier for disease and infect other fish? Absolutely. That's a very good question. Here's the thing. So, like, I am a big believer in quarantine, and that just is like the forced isolation of new fish in order for us to be able to observe them and really bolster their immunity. And this is because not only can they be a carrier of disease, but your existing fish that are eating well and on a good water change routine can have illness, disease, or whatever lying latent that doesn't affect them until you add more fish and sort of the social hierarchy within the aquarium changes. They get a little bit stressed, and it can make not only them more susceptible to an outbreak of disease, but it can also be a risk to your new fish. So your new fish can just as equally be a risk to your old fish as your old fish to your new fish. So, you know, my opinion is that you should really feed well, do a lot of water changes, let everyone settle in, be in their best health possible before you combine them. Can Nanacara be kept with cories or apistos? I haven't worked with that fish. What are my feelings and thoughts about buying wild caught fish? The vast majority of the fish that I am interested in are only wild caught. And I think it is fine. There are ethical collectors. There are ethical distributors. Buying wild fish can support areas that otherwise would be decimated. I think it's important to remember that if people aren't making their living off selling fish, they're still going to need a way to have an income. And most often in the areas, at least where the fish that I'm interested in come from, that means palm oil production, that means gold mining, or that means other things that really destroy the environment. So what I try and do is only purchase from collectors that I know use ethical practices and also contribute to conservation funds for those areas. What do I think of diamond tetras? Diamond tetras are, yeah, my wild husband appeared. Telling me where to see him. He doesn't believe me. Diamond tetras are amazing. They're actually a care species, meaning they're one that is basically gone from the wild. So I think it's really great when people work with diamond tetras, and they're absolutely gorgeous. Is there a standard for what defines ethical wild-caught fish? There is a database, and I'll have to dig up the information, but there's a database that lists companies that are willing to be audited by like a parent organization in order to make sure that they're not doing things like using cyanide or electrofishing or, you know, catching everything, that they're only catching sustainable numbers of specific species. Oh, look, you're getting called handsome. I told you they thought you were cute. They're saying it's a beautiful greenhouse. Is my husband going to do more fish sculptures? I am glad you brought that up. Every February, Chris makes a very special sculpture that we will auction off, or we've got to come up with a better system than last year. Pardon? In order to raise money for St. Jude's in memory of his best friend, Jimmy, who also shared his birthday, who died a couple years ago. And their birthday is in February. So stay tuned, and we will do some sort of live stream and try and take donations that way to dedicate to St. Jude's. Or last time I had all of the donations go directly to St. Jude's, and then I entered all the names into a random generator. So we'll see. We're going to do something like that, but he does still make some sculptures. 2 goldfish got stuck in a pleco cave. One dead, the other scratched fins. Axe sore, not swimming much. Best option? Yeah, I would say salt the tank. Wow, that's a stressful one. I'm so sorry to hear that, Ginger. I would salt the tank. I would probably do 2 teaspoons per gallon dissolved and then add it gradually throughout the day.
The way you read that, I thought it was the beginning of a joke.
That's not a joke. It always seems like our fish or animals have issues right before we're going to leave. It's so stressful. I really like when we're going to be gone more than a couple of days. I like to hire a pet sitter. Just because most of them are insured, and they'll check in with me, and I don't even have them feed the fish, but I have them look at the fish, just to appease my peace of mind. And one time while we were gone, the pump in Captain Cranky Pants tank died, and they even replaced the pump for me, left me the receipt, and then when I got home, I was able to pay them for the pump. So, and there are, there's a database, at least in the United States, of accredited pet sitters. Some or have experience with fish. I mean, I always ask for references. He looks so young and don't want to be rude. He has a black eye. Yeah, Chris's eye was removed a year and a half ago. About a year and a half ago, he had a genetic condition called iridocorneal endothelial syndrome, or ICE syndrome, that caused the surface of his eye to repeatedly rupture and buckle. So he had a transplant done, and that failed in less than a year. So the prognosis for that eye was really poor, and it was totally blind. So he got this cool, sparkly black eye. Here's the cat as requested. This is Pepper Elizabeth. I consider her to be my editor. Though since I've lost weight, she is not as happy with me because my lap is not big enough for her to sprawl across comfortably. But we love her anyway. Hi, Mary. Tub plants inside. I have most of the tub. Oh, those. I moved some inside. They're not looking awesome. I don't think they have enough light. You know, going from sunlight to artificial light, it can be a rough transition. The floaters are doing really well, but the rest of them look kind of crappy. But we'll see. And then I have all of the other marginals and lilies and stuff overwintering in the greenhouse, wrapped in winter cloth. Gordon asked about dosing botanicals. The thing with using botanicals, or even just aquariums in general, is that really no two keepers have the exact same. There's not a hard and fast rule, because all of us have different water. We all have different things that we add to our aquarium. So really what I recommend is adding them gradually and observing. You know, that's really the best thing to do, because, for instance, an aquarium with relatively neutral hardness, you may see a significant shift of your pH and hardness, whereas in someone who has a lot of carbonate hardness in their aquarium, you may never see a change in parameters. So the best thing to do is test for what you can test for, pay attention, add them gradually, and, you know, use some critical thinking. Do you keep any fish local to my area? No, it's illegal to collect fish here. How are the plants doing with the lights you got from Amazon? They are doing awesome. I don't fertilize at all. I don't use any CO2, and most of my aquariums are looking really good. So I've been really happy. And for, you know, I think it ended up being 25 or 30 bucks for a 4-foot fixture. As far as I'm concerned, you can't beat that.
They work good in my garage.
I also bought them for him for his shop. Shrimp are doing great. Is salt my go-to for med replacement? No. You know, I use salt for treating fish that have been injured. I use salt for ick treatment. And sometimes if I'm working with African cichlids like lake tangs, because my water is relatively neutral, I'll add a little bit of salt to the water just to bolster the mineral content of the water. But I don't, it's not a replacement. I mean, it has its uses. Let's see. What light fixture is it? It's an LED shop light. I really just went on Amazon and looked for fixtures that I could daisy chain together easily, meaning I wanted one plug per entire row of my fish room, because I wanted to get the cord chaos under control, and that had about the right spectrum. For me, I wanted, I think, 6,500 or 6,700, but I got like 5,500, and they seem to be doing fine. I'm in PA. I'm in York, so Gettysburg is not far. I don't remember what brand the new lights are, honestly.
I don't think they're a brand.
I don't think that they're any particular brand. He can, yeah, would you please? Chris will go look for me. I have another box of them in the basement that I still need to install into the ceilings. How do I heat my tanks? I do not. I heat the fish room. So I use an infrared heater down there. And I keep it about 85 degrees. And then in each of my high Pancistris Pleco aquariums, I do have a supplemental heater, but they rarely kick on. Will cherry shrimp breed with Bloody Marys? They are the same species, so yes. How often do you clean, vacuum, water change with bettas? In my betta aquarium, I do every other week, about 30%. He's one fish in an aquarium. So I think that's generally adequate, but it really comes down to if you're overfeeding, how your aquarium's looking, if you're getting nutrient imbalance that causes algae or things like that. There's no real rule. I think, and at least with fish keeping and aquarium keeping, that it's very much your mileage will vary, and you have to observe and make decisions based on how things look and how things are doing. I live in Amish country. Oh, well, he brought them up. We'll get to look at them. So I bought all of my lights at once because there was some crazy sale, and they're just called 4-foot linkable LED shop lights. That's it. And they came with the option to either plug them into the wall or to link them together. So, you know, Sid Fishes is doing awesome. I should probably do an update on him at some point. Hey, Chris, what are you doing? So this is the light. They're just tube LED lights.
Nothing fancy.
Really not fancy at all, but they were super easy for me to install.
There's absolutely no brand on it.
Yeah, they're a complete generic brand. I'm not a fancy girl. I don't need to spend, you know, $400 on a light fixture for my aquariums. My goals for my aquariums are to be able to see into them easily, to be able to keep low light plants, and to have the color spectrum be good for viewing.
It does have a model number.
That's okay. How many dehumidifiers do I use? I use 2, one at each side of the fish room, and they run 24/7. Sid still has his shrimp. The blue shrimp are breeding. They're doing well. Any advice on peacock gudgeon fry? Smallest food I can find is local is baby brine. You could grow some infusoria. You know, you can take like a lettuce leaf or paramecium and crush it up a little bit, put it in a jar of water and wait a few days. And if you shine a flashlight on it, you'll see little microorganisms swimming around. You can take a pipette or a syringe then and dose the aquarium with that. But I really think that they would be able to eat baby brine. Maker's Mark says cheers. It's only 4:45 here. I got 15 more minutes before I can have a drink. Unless you're my husband. Your male betta eats cherry shrimp like popcorn. The thing with bettas is like they're almost like keeping a large cichlid or a large wet pet. Their personalities are so individualized that they're one that you really have to see how they do. Some leave all shrimp alone, some eat the babies, some go on a mission of seek and destroy. You know, so this is another example of your mileage will vary. There is no one answer kind of thing. Just go out, if you're going to try and combine shrimp with them, unless you don't care if they get eaten, you should always have a backup plan. Thank you, Matt. Have I worked with N. morganthaleri, trifasciatus, or unifasciatus? Do you mean morganthaleri, like the coral red pencil? I have. I've bred those. I find the males can be a bit snarky, so to give them more space than you think and to get as many females as possible. Someone just bought you a 6-pack. Thank you, guys. Oh yeah, this is a gift from my friend Biggs. It says Canada, not Canada, eh? I think it's funny. It's super warm. So Chris, this question maybe you can answer. Any tips for getting your partner interested in the hobby? We've been married for almost 20 years. Would you say you have an interest in the hobby?
A slight interest, like not. I don't Google fish stuff when I'm on my free time, but when other people talk about fish tanks, like at work, I tell them all about my wife and her friends and her YouTube channel and invite them to come over. But I don't think your spouse needs to be interested in your hobby. Like Rachel's somewhat interested in the stuff I do in my shop, but she doesn't want to be out there welding and grinding and getting filthy and greasy and crawling under my truck and getting rust in her eyes, you know, and I don't need her to, but she'll listen to me talk about it and she'll nod her head and seem excited, you know, and I try and do the same thing for her. So I think it's important that everyone in a relationship has their own separate things to do.
Yeah, I mean, and
But
I just
support each other.
exactly, you know, you don't have to have the same interests as your partner. At least, I mean, I think it's really important that we both have our own things, like he said, that we're really interested in, but with the support. For instance, in order for me to have a fish room, you know, he bought me my first 3 aquariums and then said, if you want more, you have to give me space for my interests. So we had to build him a garage in order for me to have a fish room. So
But then with my garage, I built all her tank standards.
exactly. So,
and
you
I
know,
keep spare fittings and stuff like that for her in my garage. So when she needs something done, so I don't know. I like looking at all her fish. I like going to fish shows. I like that a lot. I like going to big aquariums. I grew up near the water, so I like animals in general, but it's better things to spend my time on than fish.
you know, he's super. You guys, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I occasionally post pictures or videos of his truck. He's got a 66 C series. That is his daily driver that he likes to work on. He likes motorcycles. He likes making metal sculptures. He likes exploring abandoned buildings. He's actually the one that originally told me about those goldfish down in Philadelphia Naval Yard. Thanks, Chris. You know, so you know, I like to go and do some of those things. I used to really enjoy going to car shows with Chris. We don't really do that much anymore. But, you know, again, just if you want them to be interested in what you're doing, be interested in what they're doing and show your support. And usually that level of support is contagious. Contagious. How about rabbits? We don't have our rabbits. We had them for really long time, almost 12 years, and they just aged out. Yeah, they lived way longer than they're supposed to, and just one by one over about 6 months they passed away of old age. He does not have a YouTube. You can find him on Instagram as Mr. Jinxed, but be ready for it.
I don't have a mass following that I need to keep it smoothed over for.
Let's see. Why are dwarf chain loaches so expensive everywhere? Because they have to be collected. They're not really bred, so they're expensive. Someone commented on your baby shark is fun from your post from Instagram earlier. I was going to steal it and post it too. I'm still waiting for the snow to happen. Nothing is happening here.
Oh, no baby sharks now?
Shrimp breed better with higher numbers. Add 5 to 20 more. Have hiding. Yep, that's good advice. So what does the future hold for Rachel and the fish room? Am I going to sell fish again? New fish tank for the big guys. In order to build a bigger tank for the big boys, and it will have to be built in place, we have to first move a lot of things. So my goals for the next few months are, unfortunately, I'm going to have to break down my Hillstream tank in order to move it. So once life settles down and Chris has time, I'm going to have him build me a new stand for the 150 that will hold the 150 and then my 275s, both my South American Nano and my birthday tank. So it'll be the 150 above and those 2 below, and we'll move it over where those 2 aquariums are now. And that means that I can move all the small little aquariums that are kind of everywhere in all those racking systems over where the 150 was. And that will free up the center of the room in order for me to hopefully be able to build a really big aquarium for the big boys. But there's just not the physical space down there to do it right now. So I have to make it. So, you know, it's, I also want to paint the floors down there. I want to improve some of the light scatter so that there's less light pollution to make it easier for me to film without my reflection or glare in the aquariums. I still have several aquariums that I need to redo or have guest aquascapers do. I'd like to set up one high-tech aquarium to learn about that and share it with you guys. I'd like to set up a few more really small aquariums, and I'd like to continue working on building the model communities that I've been doing over the past year. All of my aquariums are meant to be up for the long term. They're not meant to be short-lived. They're not meant to, I'm not going to constantly be buying fish, but we'll get to watch them mature and grow and hopefully breed and see how they do over the long term. Do I have a video on designing a home fish room that's power saving? No, because I did a terrible job of that with my own. I never, what?
As long as he's not
Yeah. I've learned a lot from having a fish room, and I never really intended to have a fish room. It sort of happened by accident.
pretty deliberate for me. What are you talking about?
I mean, I just kept getting more and more tanks. And then we tried to make them organized, but because there were so many running, it isn't done as well as it could be. You know, if I had it to do over, I would do things differently because, again, I've learned a lot. But, you know, it's pretty functional, but I wouldn't call my fish room energy saving. I do use one pump to filter or to blow air to filter all the aquariums. That is only 80 watts. I use one heater to heat the whole fish room. That's not so bad. And then I switched to the LED shop lights, which helps a lot because I was using all T8s. Does playing loud music negatively affect fish?
They like that.
Don't listen to him.
They
I
like-
wouldn't put speakers on my aquarium, but they don't seem to mind,
they like
you know.
rock.
I think heavy metal on, you know, like the big woofers you put in the back of your car. I'm very proud of the last
Yeah,
one.
they like that.
I would imagine that the vibrations may be problematic.
No, I think it's great.
The colorful fish like
They'd like to have a little dance party sometimes.
Can you guys hear my daughter saying the fish like to have dance parties? Hey, Mike.
Is it like from Mass?
I assume you're counting on more ad rev and YouTube perks rather than fish sales in the future. I don't think that that's something that you can count on, to be honest.
No.
I mean, it's never the same 2 months in a row. I am trying to work on a few sponsorships. I am working on another book. I do want to diversify my income. I would love to sell fish again, but I don't know that I'll ever go back to doing it the way I did. I just don't know that my knee will ever be good enough to do that again, you know, and it's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work, and it's all time on my feet. So it's hard to say. I'm still doing in-person sales. So people come to the fish room and purchase fish, and that's really my preference. Or if I'm traveling to events that I'm driving to, I'm happy to bring fish to events for pickup. You know, and really, you know, it's pretty frequent that people are at the house buying fish. They just have to set up an appointment, and that seems to be working out well for me. You know, but we'll see. You know, I'm going to have to do something with all the fish that I'm breeding. So I'm sure, I mean, I've thought too as well about doing like 1 week a month shipping in order to be able to thin out some of the fish in the fish room and increase some income, but we'll have to see. Let's see. Am I breeding the green neons? They have not bred. I may try them outside next year.
I thought you were going to say, is she breeding the greenhouse?
I'm not breeding the greenhouse. Do you want to come sit with us? No? What's a good beginner shrimp? I think cherry shrimp, Amano shrimp are both really good beginner shrimp. Any plans for the Detroit area in 2019? I haven't been asked. I'm not going to be doing as much traveling this year as I have in previous years, mainly because you don't get paid to do events. And I haven't worked in over a year. So there's not, and I don't take any funds from the household account to do any of my fish stuff. So if the money's not there, I can't go anywhere. I will be at the Big Fish Deal February 15th to 17th. That's relatively local. I might be in Brooklyn February 19th to 20th at Brooklyn Hardscapes. Where did I put my little list? I will be at Aquashella in Texas March 30th and 31st. And I'm supposed to speak at North Jersey on May 18th. Have I worked with Oryzius? No, I haven't worked with that Oryzius. I've done a lot with Oryzius wolverae, the Daisy's rice fish. I have a ton of them, like a massive quantity of them. They're one of the ones that I really need to sell. So we have about 5 minutes left. So if you have any specific questions for Chris or for me that you would like answered, now is the time.
Do you guys like hot sauce?
Tell me your favorite hot sauce.
Chris is addicted to hot sauces. So he's asking for recommendations on super hot but good tasting sauces.
And pickles.
Jose, yeah, that's when Oliver Canada is coming to Brooklyn Hardscape. They've asked me to go, but we'll have to see.
You want pickle hot sauce?
Ghost pepper. Do you guys have specific? Chris, do you have a single younger brother? He does have a younger brother, but he's married.
No.
He's not single.
No. I'm a lot to handle.
What's the minimum tank size to house one Polypterus palmus? I don't know. I don't work with that species.
A milk jug gallon. Just put your fish in there. There's a little hole.
Not to get too much hot sauce. Why?
That's it.
Yes, Chris does like curry. What's your favorite hot sauce right now?
There was one that Rachel bought me last year. It was from Hawaii. I might be butchering the name. I think it was called Hamajong hot sauce. It was a pork. It was a hot sauce made for pork, and it was absolutely delicious.
Didn't it have that pineapple in it or something?
It was delicious. I will look it up.
So I go Googling and just look for unusual hot sauces with interesting flavor profiles and just buy them random ones all the time. But unfortunately, I never write down what I've gotten, so I never remember what I've gotten. It sucks getting senile. Someone asked if you drive a stick. His daily driver is a manual transmission.
Oh, they're probably
Jamajang?
This.
Oh, that shirt, that's one that we had designed and I had printed for him. That's the shift pattern of his truck.
Adobo Loco hot sauce makes the Hamajang, and it's awesome.
I used to watch Hot Ones. I haven't been into it this season. I watched it all the previous seasons, but this one just didn't do it for me like the older ones did. I'll probably go back and watch them at some point. Who has more tattoos?
I think Dad does.
Oh, you can't see it. Dang.
Who has more tattoos?
Well, Dad has a lot of little tiny ones.
I guess it depends
I don't
on.
think you can count them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. We have different. Like, hold up this arm. So, like, for my filler, I went with duckweed, which is, and I left space in between mine. Whereas if you count up all his individual stars and dots and stuff, I mean, they're technically tattoos. He would have way more than me.
But I had belly tattoos.
Yeah, and he has his stomach tattooed, and I don't have my stomach tattooed, and he has his chest and your ribs. But I have my back, and he doesn't have his back, and I have my knuckles, and he doesn't have his knuckles. He probably has more than I do. He probably has more overall coverage.
There should be a program that you can scan your body, and they could condense it down to like square footage. And you could say, I have 4.15 square feet of tattoos.
I think both of our goal is to get so many tattoos that when people ask you how many you have, you can just say one. Because I know I know I have never counted my tattoos, and I never have any intention of counting my tattoos. And I don't.
I'm sure you did when you had 2.
Yeah, well, it was easy to count when I had 2, but that's been 20 years. You know, I don't keep track of how many hours I spend in the chair or how much money I've spent. So it is what it is. Cool Runnings habanero. Dave's Insanity stuff. Sauce. I think you've had that before. That one's pretty hot.
We like the blueberry one.
I answered the substrate question earlier, Nick. I use Tropica soil, and then various other gravels, natural gravels,
Can the girls get tattoos?
and kind of
When they're-
Scotch bonnet.
Yes, we can.
Can the girls eat tattoos? That would be weird.
Come here, Abby.
I'm a little.
Got a tattoo to eat.
Any advice on how to breed honeycomb catfish? I think the most important thing to remember with any catfish is that they take a while to mature. Most of them are pretty long-lived. And especially with the honeycombs, they get so sexually dimorphic in their shape and weight that, you know, you just have to wait for it and feed them well, a nice fatty, high-protein diet, keep up with the water changes, and they'll just do it on their own. I would love to visit Germany. I mean, I would love to visit Germany. I've never been to Europe. I would love to go to Europe. I think my family might leave me if I didn't take them with me, and I just don't know how we're gonna fly and pay for 4 people to go to Europe anytime soon. I haven't used blasting sand just because it's a little rough for the species I work with, but I know it's a very popular choice. All right, guys, we need to finish this up. I have to figure out dinner for my family. For some reason, they like to eat regularly. It's this weird thing. And I appreciate all of you spending your time with me. It's Saturday, right? On this Saturday. Hopefully, I'll get a video done for tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then Monday, but I'm really, 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 really excited about Tuesday's video. So make sure you guys are subscribed with that notification bell on, because I can't wait to see what you guys think. I've spent 3 days on it so far, and it's still not done. And I'm really pretty proud of it, and it's a little bit different for me. So make sure when that comes out on Tuesday, you guys let me know what you think, and if it's worth all the extra effort that I'm putting into it.
I wish I was that enthusiastic about England. They probably live in England.
I would love to go to England, man. I want to go. I want to go all over the place. One of the goals when I started lecturing about fish was to be able to travel. And unfortunately, what I learned from lecturing for the past 12 years is that while I do end up spending a lot of time at airports, I only ever really see hotels, and I never really get to see the areas that never get to see what makes the city special. What?
She's giving a thumbs up when I said she's probably from England.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Chris, for joining me at the end here. I hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. And if you're in this path of this crazy storm, stay warm and safe. And I will see you guys all again soon.